When you think about dyslexia, you might think of a picture that looks something like this. Letters or words written backwards, because dyslexia makes you read backwards, right? Wrong. Myth number 1. Regardless of which image enters your head, you might think about dyslexia being more about the intelligence of a person. Myth number 2. Most people with dyslexia have at least average or above average intelligence. So what am I, a mythbuster for dyslexia and a cognitive neuroscientist in training, doing in a photo like this? Well, I'm an educator, a music educator. In fact, we are all educators at the core of teaching. And today I'm here to educate you about the benefits music has on dyslexia. Dyslexia is the inability to read, write, and spell fluently. And apart from these poor literacy skills, people with dyslexia can have problems with their spoken language and their ability to repeat and remember words that they've heard. A large part of this problem stems from something called phonetic decoding. This is when readers are able to look at letters, translate them into sounds, and then string those sounds together to make a whole word. But for people with dyslexia, especially children, this can be hard to do because they don't quite understand that a continuous sounding word like dog or cat is actually made up of 3 smaller sounds. Interestingly, researchers have extended their studies into the domain of rhythm processing in music. Music is a powerful tool to initiate communication and social interactions. Take, for example, those iconic clips seen worldwide of balcony concerts held in quarantine. So it's a fair question to be asking yourselves at this point. Can learning about rhythms do really anything practical for the real world? And we think that answer is yes. So it turns out that empirically, rhythms can help people with dyslexia, specifically rhythms that are regular and predictable. These findings fall within the dynamic attending framework, where our attention aligns with a regular pattern that we hear. This could be a predictable beat of a song, and then once aligned, we can then predict future events, like predicting some words that come up in a sentence. Now, imagine you're at a party, pre-COVID of course, and you're talking amongst your friends, you're mingling, having a great time while ignoring background noise behind you. And then all of a sudden you hear Bre-Anna Owusu. You hear your name. What happens next? You redirect your attention to just look where your name was just called. But how are you able to do this if you were just ignoring that background information? This is called the cocktail party effect. And psychologist Anne Treisman proposes that that background information wasn't completely ignored, rather it was just diluted. It's easier for us to pay attention to words that have lower brain activations so long as after that information is diluted. So we pay more attention to words like fire, help, or our names. Similarly, research tells us that paying attention to rhythms that have a predictable regular beat are easier just because they are broken up into evenly spaced groups. There's something intrinsically easier about remembering a sequence of words or numbers that are broken up into groups that are evenly spaced, even if we can't predict or anticipate what comes next. This shows us that rhythm has an influence on memory and attention. Let me give you an example. I'm going to give you a sequence of numbers. I want you to try to remember it and then repeat it out loud. Here we go. 0, 7, 1, 9, 7, 1, 2, 4, 5. Here's another sequence. 0, 7, 1, 9, 7, 1, 2, 4, 5. Go ahead and type in the comments which sequence you found easier to remember. So children with dyslexia were able to predict what word came up next in a sentence after they listened to a predictable regular beat. But what about other cognitive processes like memory? Well, that's where my project comes in. We are mixing together a cocktail of rhythms to see which ones are best able to help children with dyslexia remember made-up words that cannot be anticipated or predicted. We think they'll be able to remember more words after they've heard that predictable regular beat versus an irregular sound sequence. Now, one prominent limitation is that we are looking at immediate memory processing skills, so our results cannot be generalized to long-lasting effects unless we implement a repeated and multiple study session. One way to overcome this limitation is if parents would engage their children in musical activities or musical training so that they can practice their rhythm skills in a fun and engaging environment. With our potential results, interventions can actually be implemented even before reading instruction begins. This means that children won't have to suffer the consequences of the currently practiced waiting to fail approach. In the distant future, I hope to develop a rhythm training for memory intervention app to be used globally, where rhythm training can be culture and language specific, giving rise to a diverse and inclusive pedagogical approach. I hope my research today struck a chord with you all as I called to your attention the future of blending art and science together into a beautiful cocktail of mixing rhythms for dyslexia. Thank you.